Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you are the kind of person who, well, if you just love getting to the core of a complex story without being overwhelmed by a mountain of information, you are in the exact right place today.
Absolutely.
We've got a really fantastic journey mapped out for you, especially if you are, a learner, someone who really wants the meat of the story.
Right.
Today, we are looking at this incredibly comprehensive Wikipedia article. It details the history, the design layout, and really the wild evolution of Disney California Adventure.
It's a remarkable timeline because on the surface, you might look at this and just see the history of a theme park.
Sure.
But the narrative hidden underneath all these facts and construction dates it's something entirely different.
And that is our exact mission for this deep dive. We're going to explore how a massive, highly anticipated billion-dollar project just completely flopped on arrival.
A spectacular misfire.
Truly. Very public. But we aren't just here to talk about a failure today. We are going to examine how the company behind it engineered one of the most successful brand turnarounds in entertainment history. Okay, let's unpack this.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just a story about roller coasters and churro stands.
Right.
This is a masterclass in business strategy, brand management, and really the danger of competing against your own legacy. The lessons we're going to pull from this course correction, you can apply them to almost any industry or any major project you might be managing right now.
So let's rewind the clock and set the scene for you. We are in the early 1990s. The Walt Disney Company is looking at its original masterpiece, Disneyland in Anaheim.
Right, in California.
Exactly. And they have a massive geographical problem.
A huge bottleneck.
Yeah. Disneyland is essentially boxed in by Anaheim's urban growth. It is totally landlocked at about 400 acres.
Which sounds like a lot until you compare it.
It's exactly.
To give you some perspective, Walt Disney World out in Florida was sitting on an unfathomable 30,000 acres at the time.
Right.
Disneyland had the park, some vacation properties, and a sprawling 100-acre parking lot. That was it.
Which was a major strategic issue for them. Disney had seen incredible financial success with the multi-park model in Florida.
The resort model.
Exactly. Think about it. If you have multiple parks, guests stay on your property for 3, 4, maybe 5 days.
Yeah.
They sleep in your hotels. They eat at your restaurants.
They stay inside the bubble.
Yes. But in California, people were visiting Disneyland for a single afternoon and then leaving.
Right.
The executives desperately wanted to replicate that multi-day resort destination model on the West Coast.
And the original plan to fix this was incredibly ambitious. It was called Westcote.
Basically a West Coast version of the EPCR Center.
Right, complete with the futuristic pavilions and the international showcases. But that dream was completely scrapped.
Oh yeah, it didn't stand a chance. Because Disney was dealing with the massive financial and public relations disaster of Euro Disneyland in Paris at the time, which was just bleeding money.
Bleeding money.
And on top of that, there's a tragic loss in leadership. Disney president Frank Wells died in a helicopter crash in 1994. So the ambitious, big-budget Westcott concept was just dead on arrival.
Which brings us to a really pivotal moment. It's the summer of 1995.
Okay.
Michael Eisner, who was Disney's CEO, gathered the company executives for a retreat in Aspen, Colorado. They needed to figure out a plan B for that 100-acre parking lot.
Right, they still needed a second gate.
Exactly. They looked at the data and realized that Disneyland's core demographic was mostly locals, or people from nearby states.
Driving distance.
Right. Those traveling from further away usually just slotted Disneyland in as a one-day stop on a much larger California vacation. They'd go to Yosemite, Hollywood, and then Disneyland for a day.
So they had an epiphany. They decided, why not build a park themed entirely around the history and culture of California?
Give the tourists the whole state right there in Anaheim.
Exactly. They can see the redwoods, the beach boardwalks, the Hollywood backlots all in one place. Keep them on the property and build less expensive hotels to support it.
It makes sense on paper.
It does. But wait, I have to stop you there, because the next decision they made seems completely baffling.
Oh, the design handover.
Yes. The president of Disneyland at the time, Paul Pressler, essentially handed the design of this new park over to merchandising and retail staff, not the Imagineers.
It is a staggering detail, and honestly, it's the crux of why this whole project derailed.
Totally.
The Imagineers are the legendary creative force behind Disney's storytelling, the ride design, the immersion. They are architects of emotion.
Right.
By putting retail and operational staff in charge of the overarching design, the primary focus completely shifted. It went from magical, transportive experiences to dining, shopping, and adult-oriented retail.
But was it really just arrogance, or were they genuinely trying something new here?
They were trying to optimize for margins rather than memory making. It was a purely financial calculation. Retail spaces and restaurants are much cheaper to build than massive, story-driven rides.
And they generate immediate revenue.
Continuous revenue. They were trying to build a theme park using the logic of a shopping mall.
Which is a brilliant business insight, but a terrible creative one. It's like hiring the manager of a movie theater gift shop to direct a blockbuster film.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. Like, sure, they know exactly where to place the T-shirts and the popcorn to maximize revenue, but the actual story on the screen is going to suffer completely.
And the budget reflected that exact mindset. The cost of building this new park, officially named Disney's California Adventure, was capped at $600 million.
Which is nothing for a theme park.
Nothing. They built it right on top of that old Disneyland parking lot, finishing construction by early 2001.
Which brings us to the disastrous debut. February 8th, 2001. The anticipation was supposedly off the chart.
Oh, so they thought.
Right. Senior Disney officials were confidently telling the press they expected to be forced to turn patrons away at the gates. They thought the park would be at absolute capacity.
The hubris there is palpable, especially when you look at the actual numbers.
Oh, the numbers are brutal.
The park drew only 5 million visitors in its entire first year.
Just 5.
To put that in context, its sister park right next door, Disneyland, saw 12.3 million visitors in that exact same time frame.
Wow.
The capacity of California Adventure was 33,000 people, but on weekdays, they were averaging just 5,000 to 9,000 visitors.
It was a ghost town compared to what they projected. And the guest reaction was even worse. Visitor surveys from that first year reported that only 20% of visitors were satisfied with their experience.
20%. That is catastrophic for a hospitality brand.
You know your brand new theme park is struggling when even high-profile sponsors like Wolfgang Puck and Robert Mondavi pack up their stuff and abandon their massive new restaurant locations there after just months. Low crowds just killed the business.
We have to analyze why it failed so spectacularly. When you look at the park's early map, it becomes obvious. There was almost nothing for kids to do.
Right.
It was heavily aimed at adults, focusing on wine tasting, high-end dining, shopping. Furthermore, there was no nighttime show or parade to keep visitors in the park after the sun went down. They just left.
Here's where it gets really interesting. There is a fantastic insight from an Imagineer named Kevin Rafferty who worked on the project.
Yeah.
He perfectly captured the disconnect.
What did he say?
He described the original entrance to the park as having these fake, foreshortened Golden Gate Bridge structures, sharp sun, and generic super graphics.
Ah, the super graphics.
Yeah, which, by the way, for anyone wondering, a super graphic is essentially just a massive flat decal or a mural slapped on a wall.
Instead of building actual three-dimensional architectural details?
Exactly. It's cheap. Rafferty said the whole entrance looked like, quote, a shopping mall in Newport Beach.
That shopping mall aesthetic was the direct, visible result of that merchandising-first design philosophy. They built flat, brightly colored facades that felt like a spoof of California rather than a romanticized version of it.
And the rides reflected that cheapness, too. I mean, it wasn't transportive, it wasn't magical, it was just confusing.
Barry Braverman, the executive producer of the park at the time, synthesized the core issue beautifully. He pointed out that locals loved Disneyland for good reason. It's a masterpiece.
Right.
Then Disney presented them with a choice. Go to the masterpiece that is Disneyland or go to California Adventure.
And they were priced exactly the same.
Exactly. But the new park had 1/3 as many attractions, fewer characters, and an intentional lack of Disney magic. Disney essentially built a cheaper, inferior competitor right next door to its own flagship product and charged top dollar for it.
That is such a vital takeaway for anyone in business. You cannot charge premium prices for a product that your own customers can clearly see is a downgrade.
Especially when your premium product is literally sitting right across the street.
Exactly. They had to slash ticket prices by as much as $10 just to try and get people in the door. They tried throwing Band-Aids on it in the early years.
Right, bringing over the Main Street Electrical Parade.
Yeah, to keep people there at night. They quickly built a Bugs Land in 2002 just to give kids something to do. They added the Tower of Terror, but the stain of that initial launch was really deep.
Which is what triggered one of the most remarkable corporate pivots in recent history.
Yes.
By 2007, Disney CEO Bob Iger looked at the park and diagnosed the problem with brutal honesty. He called California Adventure a brand withdrawal.
A brand withdrawal. There's a really powerful phrase.
It is. It means that every time someone visited and had a mediocre time, it didn't just hurt the revenue of that specific park. It damaged the overall trust in the entire Disney name.
It eroded the legacy.
Exactly. He realized the long-term cost of a bad reputation was far more expensive than the short-term cost of fixing it.
So instead of merging the two parks,
Mm-hmm.
which they considered, but it would have been an absolute logistical nightmare, Disney made a massive announcement.
October 2007.
They committed to a 5-year, $1.1 billion redesign and expansion.
I want to pause and emphasize the weight of that number for you. The original construction of the entire park cost $600 million.
Yeah.
They decided to spend nearly double the original cost just to fix their mistakes.
That's wild.
In the corporate world, admitting a multi-million-dollar error and then requesting over $1 billion to rectify it is almost unheard of. It requires incredible institutional humility.
It really does.
Yeah.
And the transformation was fundamental. They didn't just add a few roller coasters. They changed the entire soul of the park.
They tore down the front gate.
Literally. They completely ripped out that giant postcard, flat decal entrance, and built Buena Vista Street. It was transformed into this romanticized, idealized version of Los Angeles in the 1920s.
When Walt arrived.
Exactly. It was specifically designed to look like the bustling, optimistic city Walt Disney himself experienced when he first arrived in California with nothing but a suitcase. The centerpiece was a gorgeous replica of the Carthay Circle Theater.
The actual theater where Snow White premiered.
Yes.
They shifted from a modern, generic retail aesthetic to deep, story-driven, immersive environments. And the most significant addition was Cars Land, built on the final 12 acres of that original parking lot.
They meticulously recreated the town of Radiator Springs from the Pixar film.
Meticulously is the right word.
The anchor attraction, Radiator Springs Racers, had a staggering estimated budget of $200 million.
For one ride.
One ride. At the time, it was the most expensive theme park ride ever built. They built massive, towering rockwork to look exactly like the American Southwest. The ride combined highly advanced audio animatronics with high-speed racing. It was the exact opposite of the flat, cheap super graphics they relied on back in 2001.
They poured everything into this reimagining, and the payoff was absolute vindication.
Huge success.
On June 15th, 2012, they officially rededicated the park. The night before, 500 people camped outside just to be the first ones in.
Wow.
On rededication day, the park drew a record 43,000 visitors. And in 2012, as a whole, attendance jumped 23% to over 7 million visitors.
The turnaround was so complete that the chief financial officer at the time, Jay Rizzullo, called it a dream come true. For the first time, crowds were finally splitting evenly between Disneyland and Disney California Adventure.
They were finally equals.
Right. The new park was carrying its own weight and keeping guests on the property for multiple days. They fulfilled that original Aspen retreat strategy, but they did it through genuine Imagineering rather than cheap retail tactics.
But the evolution didn't stop there. Once Disney figured out the winning formula, which was high-quality immersion, they realized they had to keep updating the park to reflect modern audiences.
Right, they couldn't just stand still.
Over the next decade, they systematically began replacing the weaker, off-the-shelf areas of the park with massive intellectual properties.
And when we say IPs in this context, we are talking about their hit movie franchises.
Right.
They realized that a generic California boardwalk was fine, but a Pixar-themed boardwalk was a massive draw.
Exactly. A Bugs Land, which was that early Band-Aid fix for kids, was demolished to make way for the Avengers campus.
An entire land dedicated to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. Paradise Pier, with its generic boardwalk rides, was transformed into Pixar Pier, Even Pacific Wharf, which was essentially just an outdoor food court, just recently debuted at San Francisco Square based on the movie Big Hero 6.
It is wild how much they churned through their own real estate to get it right.
What's fascinating here is how they eventually achieved their initial goal of catering to adults, but they did it correctly this time.
Oh, the alcohol and the food.
Yes. Unlike Disneyland, which historically was a dry park with no alcohol, California Adventure integrated alcohol sales throughout its restaurants and kiosks. They launched massive, highly successful annual events like the Food and Wine Festival.
Oh, the festivals are huge. They bring in these temporary marketplace kiosks all around the park, offering high-end tapas-style food, craft beers, wine flights. It creates this vibrant, almost party-like atmosphere.
Exactly. They figured out how to provide the premium food and beverage experience that adults wanted back in 2001, but they wrapped it seamlessly inside authentic Disney storytelling and atmosphere.
Rather than making it feel like a generic outdoor mall.
Precisely.
They even managed to leverage the park brilliantly during the massive disruption of 2020. When the COVID pandemic forced an unprecedented closure of the theme parks, Disney used California Adventure to execute a really brilliant pivot.
The Touch of Disney event.
Yes. In early 2021, state health guidelines completely outlawed the operation of amusement park rides. So before rides were allowed to operate at all, Disney launched a limited-capacity ticketed event called A Touch of Disney.
It was an incredibly agile move. They essentially opened the gates and allowed fans to come in, walk around the highly themed environments, shop, and eat the famous park food.
It kept their audience engaged and generated vital revenue during a completely dormant period for the industry. It showed an operational agility that the park entirely lacked in its first iteration.
And by the time both parks fully reopened in April 2021, the demand was overwhelming.
Fast forward to 2024, and the attendance numbers are just staggering. The park hosted 10.05 million guests.
Making it the 11th most visited theme park in the entire world.
And they are still aggressively expanding. They have upcoming additions, like a massive new area based on the Avatar films, and a completely new boat ride based on Pixar's Coco.
They never stop building.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive promising a masterclass in business strategy. And the ultimate takeaway here is a profound lesson in accountability.
Absolutely.
When a project fails, whether that is a corporate product launch, a massive software rollout, a marketing campaign, or even a personal venture you are working on right now, the absolute worst thing you can do is double down on a bad idea just to protect your ego.
Disney's willingness to publicly admit that their initial $600 million vision was a fundamental failure is rare.
Very rare.
Their willingness to bring in the wrecking balls, tear down the front gates of their own creation, and spend $1.1 billion to rebuild trust with their audience is the singular reason the park now hosts 10 million people a year.
They chose long-term brand integrity over short-term margin protection.
This raises an important question, something for you to think about long after this deep dive ends.
I love these. Let's hear it.
If a company with the limitless resources, market dominance, and historical data of the Walt Disney Company can completely misread its audience and succumb to that kind of hubris, how often do other organizations silently fail because they simply refuse to admit their initial vision was flawed?
Wow.
Is the dreaded sunk cost fallacy, the idea that you have to keep going just because you have already spent the money, the actual silent killer of innovation?
Yeah.
And is Disney California Adventure the ultimate proof that sometimes you literally have to tear down the front gate to build a true destination?
That is a phenomenal question to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you some amazing insights to apply to your own world, your own projects, and your own creative endeavors. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we will see you next time.